Nothing so drastic, kamikaze chicken. Hello. Or the screen is black with no audio. There should be music. But yes, I am aware. Thank you. Hello, Spot. How are you all tonight? Aggressively tired for reasons I cannot fathom. I understand. Sleep has been elusive. And when it does find me, it finds me in pretty sizable waves. So I sleep much longer than intended. With Shay being out of town, I nearly took a day, but I've been itching to write for a bit. So I decided let's try another writing stream. Woke up at 5 p.m. today, went back to bed at 10 p.m. Woke up at midnight,
A great help.
1 a.m. and about 45 minutes ago. So Dower, thank you for 32 whole ass months. Is he gonna come in handy when I start moving out tomorrow? I wish you a safe and problem-free move. Hello, Constable. How goes it? Gotta write up a whole ass one shot for Friday too, and a whole ass campaign session for Sunday. A lot of work. Ass campaign sounds good. I'm not entirely sure what the. I know I want the theme to be horror. This will be a pointed exercise for me, or at least pseudo horror. It's gonna slot into the universe that I've been working on. I know that much. I don't really know the specifics yet. I don't have have a couple of ideas, but I haven't really had time to flesh them out. Part of this is going to be me doing that in real time and reading things out loud to make sure they make sense or like sound. Part of my process is reading things out loud to make sure it actually flows. It's that day to day for me. I need more information. I see. Think you should write about short people taking a jewel to a mountain that's on fire. Call it Sovereign of the Toe Ring. Hmm. So close. Let's see. The woman offered a small smile and wave, her usual courtesy, to the couple as they exited their booth, her other hand sliding into her apron's pocket to deposit the sizable tip they'd left her in one fluid, practiced motion. Hmm. Um, Probably horror, Sir Dan, of some kind. That's what I said, Wembley. Forgot to change your stream category to IRL again. It should be a writing category. I bring this up because it's a new category and I want to know it works. Like they introduced it last week, earlier this week. Okay. Hmm. Sorry, what I'm doing now is I have an idea of where I want this to go just from this, but I don't know if it's, I know where I want this scene to go. I don't know if I want to actually stick with this premise. I'm trying to work in that's Baldur's Gate. Um, Trying to work in other elements. The woman offered a small smile and wave, her usual courtesy, to the couple as they exited their booth, her other hand sliding into her apron's pocket to deposit the sizable tip they'd left her in one fluid motion. I think you'd should add some realism to her being a woman, something like her bosom breasted boobily icy. Although I don't think I can really do that exactly. I think Stephen King would take umbrage. Treading on his territory. Let's see. Hmm. Likely horror. Eldritch, hello. In today's stream is my background knows well. I work on writing katakana. I'm trying to learn Japanese, and gosh, can it be difficult? That's what I keep hearing. I wish you luck. Yeah, okay, sure. Why not? Horror music, technically, it's Resident Evil 4 music. It is not my birthday, but hello, Bina, how are you? This is in what's this playlist called? Gothica, Western Gothic, Baroque chiptune, VGM acoustic, classical guitar, Castlevania, and it keeps going. I can't even see the full name of the playlist, but it's 249 songs, about 14 hours long. I have no idea what's on it. Someone offered a small smile and wave, her usual courtesy, to the couple as they exited their booth, her other hand sliding into her apron's pocket to deposit the sizable tip they'd left her in one fluid motion. Playlist sounds like a product description on AliExpress. Yeah, you're not wrong. Hmm. That's The Last of Us. Okay, do I want to? I'm debating between going through the dialogue or taking some more time to establish more of the scene. Really, I might do that. Like it's died. You need that. Sweet. The woman offered a small smile and wave, her usual courtesy, to the couple as they exited their booth, her other hand slipping into her apron's pocket to deposit the sizable tip they'd left her in one fluid motion. They were regulars. Hmm. fluidly left a tip. The action of her putting it into her pocket was fluid. Which I get your point, but I haven't figured out a way to tighten that yet. Because you're right, it could be interpreted both ways. I'm picking up what you're putting down, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Maybe I should. Maybe I could. Hmm. Yeah, the break is what I'm thinking. I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to. The rest. Well, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get this next sentence to where I want to go, which is sorry, those aren't. Hold on. This is a new scene, so I haven't really. Here. One offered a small smile and wave, usual courtesies at the couple exited our booth. This should work. With the sun's around now, I don't think it works that way with what I'm trying to come up with next. Someone offered a small smile and wave, her usual courtesy to the couple as they exited their booth. She slipped her other hand discreetly into her apron's pocket as she watched them go. Hello, Ethander. How goes it? You're running an adventure in a spooky mansion that called for phase spiders. What do you replace them with for an arachnophobic friendly adventure? Where are they in this spoopy mansion? Any particular room? Yeah, I would. My suggestion would have been phase rats, but it really depends on the room. Depending on how horrifying you want it to be, you can make them like regular sized rats with phase properties and introduce swarm mechanics. But that could be rude. Upstairs on the second floor, guest rooms. Yes, shades could work. Um, Why does this feel like Final Fantasy? Because it is. It's FF9. Um, yeah, I would opt for the rats and consider the swarm mechanics option. I don't know what level they are, or if it's a one shot, they're probably they probably have options. But on top of being able to blink around like phase enemies, they would have, you know, all the effects of, or rather, all the advantages of rats. If you wanted a larger, like single entity, like a phase spider, then I would probably lead more towards the shade route, like living shadows. I can just hop around. Assuming you're using a like a VTT, you could play around with lighting effects and things in that, so it could work out. Viral thing, sadly. Mm. I still stands. Just have to be a little more descriptive. I am well enough. How are you, Fluffy Billy Goat? We're trying to do a spooky story ish. No, a small smile and way usual courtesy to the couple as they exited their booth. She slipped her other hand discreetly into her apron's pocket as she watched them go. Mm, that's not. Nope.
Me? Really?
Thank you, Palace, for 98 months. It's like almost 99. It's true. The woman offered a small smile and wave, usual courtesy to the couple as they exited their booth. She slipped her other hand discreetly into her apron's pocket as she watched them go, heavily thumbing the loose bills that left her till they were well out of view. Do I want to have them? A phobia of ghosts and poltergeists and such. I used to hate swarm mechanics, honestly. Like 3.5 made it painful, but like grappling in 3.5, there are ways to make it less painful for the players, and later editions made it easier to manage just by default. You can just homebrew it because the idea is really cool. It's just mechanically, it's a pain in the ass, like as written. Phase Butler. Are there any spaceships yet? Hello, Atticus. How goes it? Hmm. The woman offered a small smile and wave, her usual courtesy, to the couple as they exited their booth. She slipped her other hand discreetly into her apron's pocket as she watched them go, idly thumbing the loose bills they'd left her until they were well out of view. What's first having chat here? I just so it's more so to kind of make it collaborative and also to just give a little insight into my process. It is a bit more like it naturally, it's a bit more distracting because I'm not anywhere near as focused, but I'm also not pacing. And like I tend to move around my space when I write and say ideas out loud. And can't really do that as much. Just give the chat the keyboard. We got this. I could probably set that up too. Favorite letter is K. There were two bills total, a crinkled $1 bill and the tip of a fake $100 bill with an advertisement for Bethel Ranchero Church and Korea stating, here's a tip, go to church. Oh boy. One thing I would like to do at some point, I want to see if you all can survive Twitch Plays Resident Evil. What happens if we intentionally try to die? I guess you'll be here a while. Would be boring. You don't have to participate. About to try to die? Oh, fair enough. You're just like, no, I don't want to do that. It's like, well, shit. Ideas are wrong. It's understandable. Just having sort of 3 strikes or rewards, we can earn that allow you to take over X seconds or whatever. Nah. Twitch does MGS3. I don't know how that could ever work. There are far too many factors. And no auto aim. Far too many factors. Yeah, that's fair. Have a non-Resident Evil video game franchise you'd like to cover for the spooky month? I've been considering. I want to do Hollow Body. I want to give that a shot. I played the demo for it. I want to do Conscript, and I'm definitely going to be doing No More Room in Hell 2 when it drops on the 22nd. Twitch plays Minesweeper. The goal will be to hit every mine possible. Twitch writes D&D campaign. God. You visit Bug Snacks. I don't know if it can. Yeah, there are a bunch of writers and DMs around. It's just a matter if we're talking like practically actually getting the text onto like some document or into some document. Yeah, that would be annoying. So this is taking me so long. I'm doing two things here. I'm trying to figure out how I want to establish this diner that she's in, like how I the environment that she's in for this scene, this opening scene, and I'm also determining her personality, like on the fly, and I'm going back and forth between a handful of personality traits. This will specifically be it needs to be at night for it to work. The idea is that this is a woman who works in this diner, college student who works here after class when she can in this town, this college town known for its genre horror. The college is known for its architecture program. That's what she's there for. She is not native to the town. Got a part-time job. Eat every bean and pee on your plate. I was just reminded that I still have a box of Bean Boozled over there. They are ancient, and I'm not going to touch them. Ages ago, yeah, I bought a bunch of refills, and they still exist. They were lined from a book or a yes sex comedy. Saying miserable is negligence, and not trying to become happy or happy is cowardice. What's that from? The Bible too. Ah, I see. I'm unfamiliar with the Billy Goat. It's like book 18 in a series. Oh, geez. DMing D&D made me realize I love writing and that I hated my friends' ideas. Oh, I everybody has their own writing style preference. Like it's very uncommon that you'll find, well, for me, it has been uncommon that I find someone whose style that I immediately gel with. I always have to adjust when reading other people's work. But 'cause it's always like, well, I would phrase it differently or focus on different things or whatever it is. You always have your preferences. But when it comes to like collaborating ideas or on ideas, putting everything together and making like brainstorming a campaign or a scenario or whatever it is, I've found that by and large that tends to be a pretty healthy and worthwhile experience. I love that shit because everybody has ideas, like good or bad. Everybody has them, and you can always workshop a bad idea until it's something good. And that process of figuring things out is what I love the most about writing. Fiction's on the second floor. What the hell? My parents' house used to be a two-family flat, as in like one family on the first floor, and then there was a another door. Like there were two porches in the back. One door led it would led to a stairwell that would lead up to the second floor or the basement. So the second family would just enter through the back door, if not the front. But they had a discreet way to get into their place without disturbing the other family, if they so desired. So there was a kitchen on the second floor at one point. Not when they lived there, but you can see the traces of it, like in the shape of the wall where the stove would go. What is this? This is Lose Yourself Medieval Bardcore version. I hate everything. Hmm. An Eminem fan. I'm not a fan of being hoodwinked by bardcore songs. If bardcore Wonderwall exists, I'm leaving. Need to remake School of Rock, but make it a fancy and hardcore. They need to make a sequel to Everything Ever All at Once called School of Rock. Found two. Oh, good. I'm leaving twice. Small smile and wave for usual courtesy to the couple as they exited their booth. She slipped her other hand discreetly into Raven's pocket as she watched them go, heavily thumbing the loose bills they'd left her, till they were well out of view. What is this? Okay. No, not something I would recognize. Thought it was something else. This is Final Fantasy X too. That's near. Have a calling card. It depends on what kind of thing it is. If it's something that's supposed to be self-contained, one thing I like to do is, I don't think I have mud on here. Hold on. Do you have any example? This would be the closest thing, I guess. Um, I try to, if it's something self-contained, I try to lead with an idea or like a thought, a sentence, a question that by the end I repeat. So what's it like? He laughed at the question. It was more of a chuckle, really deep, resonant, tinge of something like longing or regret, but short, all the way down. You want to know what it's like? He leaned forward. It's the best bedroom I've ever had. I don't want to wake up. Something that is posited at the beginning that is paid off in the end or repeated, echoed in some way. I love doing that. I think I need to close, or not close, but hide that for a second while I do this. And that, again, I think this work. Yeah. Actually, that could be an idea. I could use that as a touchstone. Although, 65. Okay, it hasn't gone down too much. Only 3 points. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll use it as a touchstone. Come back. Uh, Figure out how the hell to. Second. Should work. Yeah, all right. Speaking of writing, how's the Delta Green going? This is for that kind of. This is all the same universe. So what's it like? He laughed at the question. It was more of a chuckle, really. Deep, resonant, tinged with something like longing or regret, but short. First time I'd heard him laugh, ever. It was also the only indication that I knew that he knew I was in the room. No hello when I sat down, no response when I mentioned the others, nothing. Just kept staring at his hands. Hadn't taken his eyes off them since I'd gotten there 5 minutes before, not even to blink. His fingers were in constant motion, each one at a different speed, all in different directions. Every digit moved like a separate organism entirely complete with minds of their own. Occasionally they'd snap and contort in ways they had no business doing either, the acute popping of joints coming in loud and clear through the intercom on his side of the reinforced glass between us. Every time I'd look up at him for a reaction, any hint of pain, but his blank expression never faltered and its focus never shifted. All he did was watch. I couldn't help but wonder if he saw hands at all. He was testing his limits, stressing them, removing them. What were hands to me were templates to him, guidelines that, when applied and followed to fruition, would ultimately result in the approximation of human appendages. Those were the rules we've learned as dictated by our genetic code. But what if they didn't have to be? What if we knew not only what the rules are, but how they work? How to change them? What would we become? What had he? The infection had not been kind. Impatient, I tapped my own fingers on the metal table in front of me. Hey, jackass. I'm thinking, he whispered, lips parting just wide enough to utter the words before freezing in place again. I could barely hear him over the fluorescence. Finally, progress. Yeah, well, I started, glancing at my phone's ambient display, 6:07. They're only giving us half an hour today, so think faster. Look, I don't need some philosophical bullshit this time. Just answer the question with whatever comes to it. Mind if I smoke? His gaze started to the half-spent pack of Camels on the tabletop as soon as the words flew out. And just like that, as if snapped out of a trance, he was himself again. With a roll of his shoulders, he plucked a cigarette from the pack in one fluid motion and slipped it into his mouth. I need to change up the words. And that other thing, fluid, slipped. Vocabulary, too similar. I could see a tension that wasn't there before fall away from him in waves, even before he struck a match, the last in the book to complete the ritual by fire. Only after he took that first long drag did he finally look up at me. But it was then that I could see with absolute clarity that whatever unblinking, finger-twisting thing had crept into his mind had inexplicably crept back out, for the time being at least. All that was left was the man I knew. He looked so tired. Sure, I said, deadpan. Be my guest. I don't mean to pry, but you were an addict, right? He ignored my sarcasm. It felt more like a statement than a question. My mother died of lung cancer, I exhaled, deflating into my folding chair. I don't smoke. I never said cigarettes. It was the tiniest gesture, a twitch, but I'd swear the corner of his mouth raised for a fraction of a second. Smug bastard, even as a somnambulist. Pointedly, I kept my own expression neutral. What about my face screams addict? He shrugged and tapped his cigarette over a dirty glass, the ashes mingling with what little remained of some dark brown liquid not yet dried. I hear things. So? I let the question hang. He was right. I was no stranger to addiction, and not so far removed from it that it didn't remain a sore spot. We all handle grief in different ways. But I wasn't about to tell him that, no matter what the hell he heard. I ask, he continued, because you asked. You want to know what it's like being disconnected. I can only think to describe it as an addict would, and it takes an addict, current or otherwise, to understand. So what'll it be, Miss Riley? He eased back into his chair, blowing smoke skyward. Will I be wasting my time? Feels like I'm wasting mine, I muttered. Despite myself, I gestured for him to continue. Control, he began between drags. It's always about control. At first, it's about the absence of it, the need for it. Sometimes people want to drink or smoke or shoot up, sleep around, whatever, because they want so badly the freedom to make their own bad choices. He punctuated every other sentence with a silence just long enough to expel the poison from his lungs. I'm ruining my life because I want to, not because it's in the cards, not because sometimes bad shit just happens. It's an unrivaled, unwavering propensity for self-destruction. But other times it's something much more basic, more primal. It's a craving for some feeling or emotion, something that you've been starving for, starved of. So what do? You look for it. In alcohol and pills and sex, anything that makes you feel again. Before long, it's the only thing that does. That's when you're screwed. This thing, whatever it is, becomes the most important thing in the world. You build your day around it. You think about it when you lay down to sleep, and just like that, any delusion you had of being in control shatters. And you don't care. Me, I've had my fair share of vices. He let the half-spent cigarette fall into the glass, gesturing with both hands to the lead-lined room behind him. Nothing compares to this. I see everything, layers of life that you never know existed. Things we don't even have words for. You want to know what it's like? He leaned forward. It's the best bad dream I've ever had. I don't want to wake up. Beauty pie, thank you. And hell to all of you. What were you up to? Oh shit, I was Plague Tale. Okay, do I want this to be similar enough to make a connection, or do I want it to be completely removed? That's Final Fantasy VII. On that day 5 years ago, I think the track is. Let me see. On that, yep, that's it. sort of repetitive behavior the smoker has that perhaps you're unaware of? Hmm. Do you have a specific repetitive gesture? That's not a bad idea. I think what I will, if I incorporate that, it'll be a long, it'll be a slow burn that it'll be a through line with that character throughout multiple chapters. One thing that I do like to do when it comes to the writing in this particular program, let me, can I change that? I should be able to. But one thing I do like to do with this particular program, though, is like each of these icons here represents a character. So if there's a same one, it's because this story focuses on the same character. Um, but with each of them, with each of the characters, I use a different font. So now I need a font for this, and I don't know which to use. I've forgotten about it. This is Scrivener, Georgia. No, I didn't work. I'm using that as square. Let's see. I couldn't imagine using Microsoft Word or imagine using Microsoft Word for larger projects. Oh Christ! Maybe I could use this. Oh, I hate that. Actually, it's too small. That'll work. I had a report that was 352 pages in Word. What was the topic, if I may ask? 18,800 words at the moment. Goal of 80K. You got this. I can appreciate not really knowing or caring to use anything else. I notice that a lot when it comes to creatives. Like if they have something that works for them, they don't really, the idea of something new concerns them when it comes to their like introducing a new element, even if it's functionally similar or better, even. Um, they tend to shy away from it. I am similar in most cases. I tend to avoid new products or things. It really depends on what it is, though. I need to hide this for a second. Here, report on a simulation I had to perform for work. Methodology, background research, setup, raw inputs, data, and summaries. Okay. I'm very sorry. I can't even. I feel like that applies very much to creatives, but like to a point. I think it applies just as prominently to the older generations because they didn't grow up with just a wealth of technology. So it's something it's something new that they have to learn and try to understand. They struggle with it. At least it was paid though. Good. Small smile and wave. Their usual courtesy to the couple as they exited their booth. She slipped her other hand discreetly into her apron's pocket as she watched them go, idly thumbing the loose bills they'd left her until they were well out of view. She'd count them later. So I've been making a suggestion below your own. It's really damn good. It's very rare for me to read these types of things as late. I had difficulty actually seeing the scene in my mind compared to when I was younger. And I saw the scene you put forward. there's your reading it out loud or aloud. So perhaps I just need to release a few books and then I can get to reading. Yeah, one thing that I find difficult with other people's writing, one of the reasons it, oh, I'm trying to remember the name of there's a zombie series that I stumbled across lately. I've been trying to read more just to get back in the habit of doing so. Like, if you write, you need to read. It's just, you have to. At least I have to. It's the only way I can really feel sharp. So I've been trying to get back into reading more, and I've been trying to branch out, especially in the genres that I want to actually write in. And I picked up, or at least I read a sample, like first like 10 or so pages of the zombie series. And the writing style was so difficult because I've learned that the standard for for structure is so low that people tend to let things, like readers tend to let things go. Like they don't really, they'll just chalk it up to the style being what it is and will just read and absorb it. They'll appreciate the characters and the story and the dialogue, and they won't really care about the structure. For me, structure is integral to the experience, which is why I'm struggling so, why I focus so much on this, like on the placement of the words, where things happen in the sentences, and how they inform the rest of the scene. I try very much to make anything I write work. If you, it works best if read aloud. It works best if it needs to feel natural. It needs to sound natural. If the phrasing, if the structure does not feel natural when reading it out loud, I've done something wrong. We as humans, we absolutely speak differently than we think, but not so. At least for me, not so different that it's easy for me to connect to writing that seems unnatural when spoken. But everybody is different, so for some people, it might not even make a difference. Does any of that make sense? A writing teacher said you have to read in order to write. I scoffed at him. He was so right. I don't know. I feel like it's. Well, is there a field that. hmm, Is there a field that anyone can think of that would allow or encourage not like submersing yourself in order to perform? Like you have to feel like most of them, a sizable chunk of them, warrants like doing like looking at examples of whatever it is. That that means a great deal. It's also easier than ever to self-publish too, which isn't a bad thing. Like I don't really, to be clear, I'm fine with just the sheer volume of fiction, especially that's out there that people are able to publish, good or bad. Because at the end of the day, good or bad is subjective. I might not gel with it, but someone out there may find something worthwhile in it. May inspire them to create. But it is something I noticed that it is, for me specifically, it's been harder to get over that hurdle of absorbing another writer's style if it seems so obtuse. Distraction may be video editing, but only because context of how you're immersed is different. Still a high level of immersion there, more akin to music writing instead of performance when it comes to immersion. I feel like the closer you get to like instructional work, the easier it is to not really subject to your or like submerge yourself in the field if you can get by just like following tutorials or instructions or directions. Because from there you can extrapolate. You know, if you horror creatives here mention or have mentioned being more isolated or not viewing other horror content, that I can kind of understand. Horror is a very, for me, it's a very unique genre. It's very similar to mystery too. Um, like the two are so closely connected. I think that they often go hand in hand with things like this, but you never want to repeat someone else's idea. Invariably, you will because everything has been done, but you don't want to be influenced. You don't want your brain to make any sort of connection, either subconsciously or otherwise, and you don't want people to be able to make that connection, or at least as little as possible. As a writing, it's gone. Satu, thank you for the raid, and hello to all of you. Ski, thank you for 2 full years.
Inspiring.
I was more speaking to the latter. That was Zero Mission. How'd that go? I don't think I like this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to separate this, bring it down there. There's a role, but I'm working on beating both Fusion and Zero Mission sub 3 hours. Fusion went really well. Zero Mission Randomizer is less than desirable without rules. Oh no. Hmm. Do I lead with a dialogue? That might be the mistake. That's also a thing I do. I tend to lead with dialogue. I tend to prefer it. I like the idea of starting with some sort of action, but I don't know if it works here. What do you do instead of leading with dialogue? Either focus on the couple or focus on the it's dark and stormy night. Focus on the couple or focus on the action of like collecting the tip and everything that entails as it relates to the woman. I guess give me a little more time to establish the scene. The reason I normally lead with dialogue is because it's often two people talking, like starting out, and it just goes from there. So those are also often condensed and contained. This is meant to be a little longer than that, so what is this? You again. Hmm. What gets me into my writing zone? That's a question. Usually it stems from an idea, like a single like scenario or phrase or some singular piece of something that I form everything around. tonight was connection. I normally can't write with music. I like not well anyway. It needs to be something I am either intimately familiar with or something that I can. When I listen to music, I feel a. It's like when I watch something, I can't really just have things on in the background. I tend to just focus on it, whatever it is. Same with music. Like I listen to music, so I need to be familiar with it so I can very easily like slip out of that, or it needs to be something that I am like that I do not care about whatsoever. Presenting some diner ambient sounds in the background. So I like this. I like this beginning, but I can't quite nail it yet because this is going to be a thing that I loop around. This is going to be a connecting thread. I just need to find a way to connect it. Take care, Dower. This is this is Hollow Knight. So I have this thing where if I'm listening to something that I am unfamiliar with, but recognize, like, for instance, this lo-fi rendition of the White Palace from Hollow Knight, the second I realize what it is, like the second my brain makes the connection, even if I don't consciously realize it, I get chills. And it happens every time. Like physical chills. Like with them, yes, it happened then too. Maybe some sounds that might be audible now without their voices, creaking of leather booth cushions, the whine of the ceiling fan overhead, buzzing of a light bulb on its last legs. Does he have musical talent? I have no idea. I don't know. The idea here, they were quiet. These two, this couple, they're regulars. They're in their early 50s, maybe a little older. They come here every Wednesday. They order the same meal, each of them. They eat often in silence, probably speaking more words to the service staff than to each other. And they sit there for a couple hours, eat their food, drink their coffee, and leave every Wednesday. Also get one playing piano if you accidentally play something that you recognize. Where it's from? No, probably because I that's more active for me. If that makes sense. client. You backshading or you're just vibing, probably some combination thereof. Also, yes, the calendars are a thing. So you're otherwise busy? No, it is closing time. They are one of two parties, customer wise anyway, that remains in this establishment. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings. The immediate shuffling of fabric against pleather, the loudest I wonder if I still know how to play this on piano. We barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings. They were shuffling a fabric against pleather, loudest. Cutting through the otherwise silent restaurant. Pleather's coming from the booth. We barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings. Muted shuffling of fabric against pleather. How do I connect that to the hmm. See, I don't. The first thing that came to mind was suddenly Samuel Jackson and John Travolta walk in with suits on. Oh no. I haven't seen Pulp Fiction in a very long time. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings. The muted shuffling of fabric against leather seats, the loudest sound between them. They were so quiet. I don't know if I like it in that it sets up the quiet line, but I feel like there's a more elegant way to say it. They barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the minute shuffling of fabric against leather seats. Yeah, they're going to be paying with cash and leaving it on the table. That's exactly what I had in mind. Uh, Look, Jason, how goes it? The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against leather seats, the only shared sound between them. One after the other, and they squeezed out of their booth. Neither, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. But okay, nothing crazy. Just got off work and having dinner. What's for dinner? They barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against leather seats, the only shared sound between them. One after it, one after the other, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. American corn with mac and cheese, carrots, and pork chop. Delicious. I'm assuming home cooked. That sounds like a home cooked meal and a good one. Do an action that the other follows suit in so you can reference some physical characteristics, separate them somehow. That made it excellent. They barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against pleather seats. I feel like I don't need the seats if I'm going to have the booth. I feel like that could be inferred well enough. And it flows better. Muted shuffling of fabric against pleather, the only shared sound between them. One after the other, they squeeze out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. Hmm. Actually use some action verb for the sound itself. Once pleather briefly struggling against the dreadful silence between them before silencing into nothing. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings. The muted shuffling of fabric against pleather briefly struggling against the dreadful silence between them before silencing into nothing. They barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings. The muted shuffling of fabric against pleather, the only shared sound between them. One after the other, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each. To many others, that's why it sounded weird. One by one by one, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. As. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against leather, the only shared sound between them. One by one, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was a practiced ritual. was practiced. That's not used, but practiced. A little ritual. It was practiced. A little ritual. Take care, Turtle Cyanide. Thank you for hanging out. I'll do my best. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings. The muted shuffling of fabric against leather, the only shared sound between them. One by one, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was practiced, their little ritual. One that they met, formed for a time. It was practiced, their little ritual, one that they performed long before her time, would likely. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against leather, the only shared sound between them. One by one, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was practiced, their little ritual, one that they'd performed long before her time, and would likely perform well after she'd gone. Likely. Not little. I want little here. So I need a word here. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against leather, the only shared sound between them. One by one, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was practiced by now. Their little that just came like that's why I read out loud. I don't know if it works, but it came out. It was well practiced by now. It was well practiced by now, their little ritual. Not see, little feels right there, but the little ritual, one that they'd performed long before her time, and likely one they performed well after she'd gone. She'd flown from that sleepy little diner. the edge of town. Subtle can work. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against pleather the only shared sound between them. One by one they squeezed out of their booths, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their subtle ritual, one that they performed long before her time, and likely one they'd perform well after she'd flown from that sleepy little diner at the edge of town. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Palace. I just haven't been able to come up with a different phrasing for it yet. One after the other was what I had originally. I didn't want to do that because other, one after the other, least of all to each other. Like the repetition I wanted to avoid. I was thinking about the less is more approach, but I don't know if I want to. I can make this work. I can make this work, and like I can help drive home the repetition of it all. I can just find the phrasing. It's right there. I don't know if it'll be good, but it's right there. A couple barely made eye contact with each other as they connect. Couple, two. A couple barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, muted shuffling of fabric against leather, the only shared sound between them. In sequence, always her and him. They squeezed out of the booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their subtle ritual. I don't know if this works yet. Their shared ritual. The couple barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against pleather, the only sound between them. In sequence, I think that sounds better. Shared, I think, was a bit too much there. But this next sentence might be a little too much. The couple barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against pleather, the only sound between them. In sequence, always her, then him, they squeeze out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their shared ritual, one that they performed long before her time and likely one they performed well after she'd flown from that sleepy little diner at the edge of town. Long before her time now that they're a couple instead of two of them implies a couple's. First being talked about as before her time now. I'm not sure I follow what you mean there. Could you elaborate? Didn't introduce the waitress. Yeah, that's why I had the quote before or the dialogue at the beginning. So I could establish that. I've just been trying to figure out how to do it here. I was going to do it in the next paragraph. I don't know if that would have been too confusing though. Um, I see. Okay, I understand. Yeah, she because she's not established yet. Yeah, with context, it would be apparent, but it's just a matter of whether or not. It's not that I wouldn't trust the reader to get there. It's just a matter of would it be too much work for the reader to get there, even though it would be the following paragraph that I changed it, or would the dialogue be better? The couple barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings. Muted shuffling of fabric against pleather, the only sound between them. In sequence, always her, then him, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their shared ritual, one that they'd performed long before her time, and likely one they'd perform well after she'd flown from that sleepy little diner at the edge of town. A couple is the primary, and she is someone else, to me at least. Ritual is another thing. The waitress watched the couple patiently. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, muted shuffling of fabric against pleather, the only sound between them. In sequence, always her, then him, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced now, their shared ritual, one that they'd performed long before her time, and likely one they'd perform well after she'd flown from that sleepy little diner at the edge of town. As much as like it's always up to interpretation. Um, Typically, you want the intent to be clear. Like, there's some things that I'm fine with leaving a bit more ambiguous, if only because I can make it less so as the scene goes on by introducing new context or by contextualizing the earlier paragraph. I don't know if I want to do that here because it's the first paragraph, so I'm leaning more towards putting something up front. Yeah, exactly that. That first sentence is I feel like there's a place for it. It's something that it is a tool, I think, that can be used, that should be used sparingly, but it is a tool nonetheless, one that I wish other people would employ because it makes you process that, like the what sort of thing. While it can pull you out, if it's too confusing, it also makes sure you're paying attention and not going through the motions. Like there's a balance. But I don't think here's the place for it, not this early. Like it's great when dealing with mysteries, but this doesn't need to be a mystery. Yeah, I tend to speed read more often than not, and if the phrasing is nonsensical, I do have to go back and reread it, slow it down, or even if it just has more than one possible interpretation. And even when it doesn't, like the last thing I read, or I've been reading through on the way to a smile, Final Fantasy VII compilation thing that was released around the time of having children. My brain moves faster than my eyes, like to the point of where I will sort of fill in the gaps as I read through, like formulate the idea of where it seems like they're going to go, and then I have to go, wait, hold on, slow down. Waitress watched the couple patiently. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, muted shuffling of fabric against leather, the only sound between them. In sequence, always her, then him, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their shared ritual, one that they performed long before her time, and likely one they'd perform well after she'd flown from that sleepy diner at the edge of town. Well, that's good. Hmm. That's interesting. This is Hornet. Yes, is a good arrangement, I think. Yeah, this is why I can't listen to music while writing. Waitress watched the couple patiently. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings. Muted shuffling of fabric against leather, the only sound between them. In sequence, always her, then him. They squeeze out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their shared ritual, one that they performed long before her time, and likely one they'd perform well after she'd flown from that sleepy little diner at the edge of town. Hello, Neuro. So quiet. F15. Somnus, yep. So far, I've decided that I like this playlist. There's like 14 hours, so it could make me do. There is that fucking Eminem hardcore song though, so jury's still out. I haven't. I'm not sure. Do I want to go with "They Were So Quiet" first, or she liked them? She decided. Silent Hill. Yep. The sheer amount of music that I can identify without having played the source games. She liked them. She decided. Like clockwork, they'd appear in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons. Commandeer. BPM. Hold us for a minute. She liked them, she decided. Like clockwork, they'd appear in the haze of Wednesday. That doesn't feel natural, yeah, let me see. Like clockwork, they'd appear in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons. Did I just get RE1'd? Yeah, I did. God, this feels weird. She liked them, she decided. Like clockwork, they'd appear in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons, commandeer their little booth in the corner, and close. She liked them, she decided. Like clockwork, they'd appear in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons, commandeer their little booth in the corner, and sit until close. They didn't even have to order. Everyone on staff knew their orders by heart. At first, the whole thing, unnerving. She liked them, she decided. Like clockwork, they'd appear in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons, commandeer their little booth in the corner, and sit until close. They didn't even have to order. Everyone on staff knew their orders by heart. At first, she found the phenomenon unnerving. The whole thing, hmm, that doesn't sound natural. Like clockwork, they'd appear in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons. That part, like it works. It just, I don't know if it feels right yet. The waitress watched the couple patiently. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against leather the only sound between them. In sequence, always her, then him. They squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their shared ritual, one that they'd performed long before her time. One that they'd performed long before her time, and likely one they'd perform well after she'd flown from that sleepy sleepy little diner at the edge of town. She liked them, she decided. This is familiar. This is near. Yeah, okay. She liked them, she decided. Like clockwork, they'd appear in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons, commandeer their little booth in the corner, and sit until close. They didn't even have to order. Everyone on staff knew their orders by heart. At first, she found the phenomenon unnerving. They're like clockwork, and she liked them, she decided. They'd appear like clockwork in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons. Actually, like that. What the hell? Is that a... Hold on.
Ready for the mosh pit, Shaka Bra.
Uh, let's see what it gives me. Nothing. Is that anchovy banchovy? Kona 2. Tell me more. Your writing stream? I mean, I'm doing a something stream. I'm doing my best. How are you doing? How are you all doing? It appear like clockwork in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons. Commandeer their little booth in the... Commandeer... Little again. Commandeer their booth in the corner. And sit until close. They didn't even have to order. Everyone on staff knew their orders by heart. At first she found the phenomenon unnerving. This is something I recognize too. That's because it's near. You have my sympathies, Neuro. What are you writing? We're writing about a waitress in a diner in a nondescript American town. on a sleepy Wednesday night. This may or may not be horror. It is not Bright Falls, although I could channel that. It's technically it's really, it admittedly is really just to refire those parts of my brain, but it is going to be in universe for the thing I've been working on. It will serve a purpose, like a purpose beyond that, at least. Could absolutely replace Screaming and Stoicism Wednesdays with writing streams instead. Jan, I should write a story. Part of me deciding to, like, I nearly called off the stream since he is not present. I was just going to take a day to recharge. My sleep schedule has been all over the goddamn place, and it's been making it very difficult to get anything done. So I was going to take today to recharge and get some things done, but I decided, you know what? I've been wanting to write, so let's try. Like, you write one line and he writes another, and so on. God. Structure me, I guess. Twitch recently added a category for writing and reading. Like, finally. So now I can actually make this as Castlevania. Time Spinner. I don't know what that is. If I Girl has a Halloween playlist, I may look into that. I've was it City Girl or Lo-Fi Girl that I reached out to? It might have been City Girl. I can't remember. I need to double check. But I reached out to one of them asking if it was okay to have them as like background ambient music for for any sort of stream, so long as it wasn't in the recording. But I forget what they want. The stipulations they put in place were a bit extreme, so I didn't do it. I cannot remember which one it was though. It might have been City Girl. Didn't doze off at all. I'm very proud of you for not dozing off, and I would be extremely disappointed if you were lying to me right now. Not mad, just disappointed. Not a cop. I don't know if this should be a separate paragraph or like if I should have the break there or have it here and go from there. This can go down. The waitress watched the couple patiently. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against pleather the only sound between them. In sequence, always her, then him, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their shared ritual, one that they performed long before her time, and likely perform when they'd likely perform. That's why. That is why. God damn it. When they'd likely, I guess, got hit with weight of the world. That. I really want to replay near. In sequence, always her, then him. They squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their shared ritual, and that they'd performed long before her time, and when they'd likely perform well after she'd flown from that sleepy little diner at the edge of town. She liked them, she decided. They'd appear like clockwork in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons, commandeer their booth in the corner, and sit until close. They didn't even have to order. Everyone on staff knew their orders by heart. At first, she found the phenomenon unnerving. How on the nose do I have to be, or should I be here? Hmm. First, she found the phenomenon unnerving. At first, she found the phenomenon unnerving. They didn't even have to order. Everyone on staff knew their orders by heart. At first, she found the phenomenon unnerving. to restructure that. I think separating that is good. It appeared like clockwork in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons commandeer their booth in the corner and sit until close. They didn't even have to order. Everyone on staff knew their orders by heart. At first, she found the phenomenon unnerving. Why did I do that? Did I not? I didn't. Okay. The waitress watched the couple patiently. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against pleather, the only sound between them. In sequence, always her, then him, they squeezed out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their shared ritual, one that they'd performed long before her time, and one that they'd likely perform well after she'd flown from that sleepy little diner at the edge of town. It appeared like clockwork in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons commandeer their booth in the corner and sit until close. They didn't even have to order. Everyone on staff knew their orders by heart. At first, she found the phenomenon unnerving. Something was the way it went unspoken. And not they way. At first, she found the whole phenomenon unnerving. The way it went. This this is something from Skyrim, but it's just green sleeves, and I'm mad. They can't keep getting away with it. It's just generic lo-fi. You don't understand. Oh, I see. My mistake. It appear like clockwork in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons commandeer their booth in the corner and sit until close. They didn't even have to order. Everyone on staff knew their orders by heart. That's where I used okay. At first, she found the whole phenomenon unnerving. The way it all went unspoken. You got it, games. This is Scrivener. Challenge is good. What is Castlevania? Castlevania. Good luck, games. Vampire Killer is the name of the track. Rather, it may be the name that the person gave the track. I don't know if it's the exact track from Castlevania. I don't know. Because I don't know the track names. Vampire Killer's the other really good one. Okay. So annoying they have to pay for specific device licenses, though. Yeah, I think. Well, no, it really is silly. That said, you can once you buy it once for whatever device, it provided it's the same kind of device. Like if you put it on Windows, for instance, you can put it on multiple. And they won't really bat an eye. But yeah, if you want it on iOS and Mac and Windows, yeah, you have to pony up for all the different versions. They have yet to make an Android thing, which bothers me greatly. I very much want them to release an Android app. They said they were going to years ago, since this was in 2.0 or like 2.x. Now it's in 3x, and still no Android. I want to be able to grab my tablet and grab my Bluetooth typewriter and just go in a park somewhere. I'll write from bed if I wanted to. So, I can. So this is a bit more than just like a traditional word processor. It has so much organizational tool, like so many rather. Um, it has different like formats. Like you can do screenwriting. Can I the project? Oh, it opened up over there. You can't see it. I'll just uh, all um, the different built-in formats that it accommodates. BBC radio scene, tape drama, a comic script, documentary script, essay, Chicago style, um, general nonfiction, novel, novel with parts, paper, APA, and MLA, persuasive lecture, poem, recipe collection, research proposals, screenplay, short story, stage play, both the UK and US, then undergrads, humanities essay. Yeah, it says meant for writers. They have a lot of different tools. I tend to use the blank one and just make, like, I have a full, not full, I have a binder full of different stuff organized in a way that I like. Fairly organized, but yeah, it lets you do a lot. But you can also just use it as something like as a traditional word processor, and that you make a document or import one and just go. But you also have ways to, like, if you so desire to use them, like you can create like little hyperlinks or like keywords and tie them, like have them appear and highlight in other documents and connect them all. It's very nice. They also have a companion app called Scapple. Um, like I think it's called, um, that works sort of like a cork board, and that you can throw a bunch of ideas together, like basically think of like post-it notes connected with string, except like an idea board, just digital. And you can tie all of that, like it has integration with Scrivener. So you can pull from, like grab various keywords or phrases or documents or whatever, excuse me, from your project in Scrivener and have them appear in Scapple by default, and organize your thoughts that way if you so desire. I have both. I use Scapple for different things. I use it for, oh, I didn't do the Wordle. Fuck. Um, I use it primarily for um, like scenario flow stuff for tabletops. Scapple is a missed opportunity nickname for me. Hmm. What? Why did he do this? My father reminded me to play the Wordle, like now, 6 minutes after, but he also posted accidentally, I'm guessing, a picture of their shoe rack in the middle of the day, like to the Wordle group chat. I'm so confused. Had to be by mistake. But if it's related to the Wordle, well, he also posted his, like, the Wordle answer. He screenshot that. They all do it. I don't, because it's so many photos to be taking and storing on your device. But yeah, he screenshot his Wordle answers and just, like, when he got it, he just posted it. So if it's related to the Wordle somehow, I don't see it because I know what yesterday's thing is now because he just posted it. Psychological warfare, it's working. Gonna beat me today. Oh no. I have to. He does have a cooler shoe rack than me. That's true. Doesn't have to rub it in. That didn't work. Why didn't that work? Never mind. I fixed it. Waitress watched the couple patiently. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings, the muted shuffling of fabric against the leather, the only sound between them. In sequence, always her, then him. Very congested. They squeeze out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their shared ritual, one that they'd performed long before her time, and one they'd likely perform well after she'd flown from that sleepy little diner at the edge of town. What was the program? They'd appear like clockwork in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons, commandeer their booth in the corner, sit until close. Big, huge labs, huh? I don't know why the font shifts. It bugs me. But I'm glad I'm not crazy. Thank you. Okay. I kept looking at it like that. No, it does. It absolutely does. I don't know if I can change it here. Hold on.
Thanks, pal.
You know, I was just thinking, haven't heard from that shithead in a while. And then he appeared. Thank you for 114 months. Also, I did appreciate it. I appreciated it so much that I showed my friends. It was very good. No notes. Are all of you somehow still inexplicably sick? I have your the very the paltry trinket I got you for your birthday that I have not been able to give you. Sick again. I'm sick of you. Poultry trinket. Just a whole ass chicken. And why is this? That's upsetting. Don't you switch again, you son of. Why does it go from? But why? I didn't choose semi-light. All right. Thank you, Bina. I'm not insane. I'm like that. I know that looks different, but I was afraid to call out. Also, okay, time die. Did you happen to pick up or have interest in uh, the Marvel vs. Capcom collection that was released recently? I don't know how much you care about MVC2 these days. Well, that's unfortunate. I have to do this again, and this. Here. Waitress watched the couple patiently. The two barely made eye contact with each other as they collected their belongings. The muted shuffling of fabric against pleather, the only sound between them. In sequence, always her, then him, squeeze out of their booth, neither of them daring to speak, least of all to each other. It was well practiced by now, their shared ritual, one that they'd performed long before her time, one that they'd likely perform well after she'd flown from that sleepy little diner at the edge of town. Made appear like clockwork in the haze of Wednesday night's patrons, commandeer a booth in the corner and sit until close. They didn't even have to order. Everyone on staff knew their orders by heart. At first she found the whole phenomenon unnerving. What the fuck? What on earth? Hold on, I got this. Fuck. Still not a one. Well, incredible. I'm gonna do the portal, I guess. Wait, shit. I need to feed the cats. I should also probably call it. Have a snack. You like cat food? It's the crunchy kind. You got it. Uh, what the hell? I'm gonna work at this. I always hit this point where, like the beginning of something, either the beginning it'll click instantly and I'll go, and then towards the end it'll peter out and I'll have to work for the ending, or I'll have to struggle just to get to that click till I hear it, till I see it. And then it'll just go. Best thing I got at a thrift store was some college shirts and stuff. Couldn't afford branded stuff in the new store, so I was able to fit in by wearing my college stuff in the secondhand store. I mean, that's a solid find. Also, hello, Leah. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You've arrived at the tail end. Starter word this time was think. I'm so sorry. Time zones are stupid. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I don't really have a plan. I expected Dead Rising to take longer than it did. I did not expect to just hit the end of that. I thought it was going to go on for a little longer. At least a couple more streams. Or streams, not strings. I will look into Hollow Body, see if I want to actually pick that up. That or Conscript, one of the two. Something to hold me over until the 22nd. Zoocosis, I have not heard of this, I don't think. Oh, maybe I've heard of this. 22nd is No More Room in Hell 2, I believe. Pretty sure that's when it drops. Does this still work? Hold on. Let's see. Is it doing the thing? I don't know. No, it's not. It's not working at all. Can I do anything with this? Or to the wise, don't get psychosis. Oh, also hello mouse. Now what if? What? That is not. Huh? That is not. Hold on. Why? What is? Oh, or transcripts 2021. No, I need to know what. There's no way that's accurate. What was I saying? What was I on November 29th, 2021? Might have been TwitchCon stuff. Why is it? How do I get? What is this? I don't know how I got the caption thing to work before, but it's not going to work. Not until it wasn't a plugin or some, wait, called captions? Wait. Enable? How about now? What if, actually don't know. I don't remember how I set this. It's been like 3 years. Yeah, well. I said what I said. I'm leaving. Have a good night, you all. And thank you for hanging out during this rare sight of a writing stream. I will do my best. One more for the road from everyone. God, shit, fuck. This is bullshit.